So one of the things I talk about a lot on my channel is inexpensive gear and equipment, specifically dirt cheap guitar. That's tend to been the most liked videos that I've had, or most watched videos. But you might be asking yourself, why would I want to go out and spend money on some cheap guitar when what I really want is something a lot more expensive or a lot nicer? Why would I go and buy this stuff? So in this video, I'm going to give you 5 reasons why it might be a good idea for you to own your own dirt cheap guitar. Okay, so the first reason you might want to have a dirt cheap guitar, if you are going to be out playing gigs anywhere and you don't necessarily have the money for a second guitar, you can get a cheaper guitar as a backup. That way, if for some reason a string breaks or something, or for whatever reason something goes wrong with your main guitar, you've got a second one that you can pick up and easily jump back in. And then when you take a break, you can deal with whatever issues that you had with the first guitar. Reason number 2, maybe you want to try a different style of guitar, but you're not sure about putting a bunch of money into it. A good example is this Epiphone that I demoed in one of my more popular videos. The reason that I got this guitar, other than the fact that it was under a couple $100, was it had these P90s, which are kind of a single coil pickup. They sound a little bit like a cross between a single coil and a humbucker. They don't cancel noise, so they can be a little bit more noisy than a humbucker, but it has a thicker sound, I guess, than a standard single coil. And then I can decide if I really like it. Is this something I'm going to be happy with? And then if I decide, yeah, I really like this, then maybe I can go back and spend money on a more expensive guitar, but you still have this one as a third. So again, back to number 1, you've always got a backup that you can carry with you. All right, reason number 3 that you might want a dirt cheap guitar. Maybe you want to experiment with different tunings on your guitar. If you're going to do any kind of drop tuning or anything like that where you're going to lower the pitch on guitar, you'll want to change to heavier gauge strings. If you go down too low, anything beyond, say, a half step down, the strings might get really kind of loose or floppy on the guitar. So a lot of times people will go back with heavier gauge strings so that you're increasing that string tension, so that when you lower the pitch, the tension is going to be comparable to what you had with the lighter gauge strings at standard pitch. I'll give you an example. This, again, from one of my other dirt cheap guitar videos. This is a Chinese made, or, it is Chinese. I have one that's Indonesia as well. This is a Squire Bullet Strat. I did a video on this one. It's okay. I got it at a pawn shop for $45. Can't beat that. But this one I have tuned down an entire step to D standard. So it's tuned just like a regular guitar as far as the notes, but each note is a whole step down. So when you play an E chord, it actually ends up being a D chord. And same for all the other chords. They're all a little bit lower. This one I have 10 gauge strings on it right now. I usually put 9s on my electrics, my Strat style electrics, but this one I'm kind of experimenting with. I had this down to E flat. I've dropped it down to D. The 10s that are on here still work, but I'm probably going to switch it to 11s just to give it a little bit more string tension, and so the strings aren't quite as floppy and loose, and otherwise they might hit up against the fretboard. Okay, the 4th reason you might want to pick up a dirt cheap guitar like this one that I also did in another video. Let's say you want to get into servicing your own guitar, taking care of it with maintenance, etc. String changes, things like that, you really can use your regular guitar for that. That's not quite as invasive. But when it gets into things like cleaning up the frets, or leveling the frets down, or doing a fret crown, or adjusting action, meaning you're adjusting the tension on the neck, adjusting pickup heights, string heights, and you want to get good at it, but don't want to risk your frontline guitar, your nicer, more expensive guitar. You know, if you get one of these guitars, whether it's one like this or this Bullet Strat that I got from a pawn shop, if you break it, you know, you're out that little bit of money. If you were to do that to your main guitar, where you've put, you know, maybe several $100s or $1,000 or $1,500 into it, that would kind of break your heart. So one of the things that you can do, and I'll be doing videos about this in the future, is doing like working with the fret edges, because on a lot of these cheaper guitars, they'll be a little bit rough, or maybe leveling the frets a little bit. Those types of maintenance items, swapping out pickup. So it's always good to hone your maintenance skills on a less expensive guitar, so that in the event you do something catastrophic, like break the truss rod, meaning you've turned it way too much, something goes pop, it wasn't supposed to do that, or you gouge the fretboard when you're trying to maybe clean and polish or level the frets, anything like that, you're not going to take as big of a hit in the pocketbook. And it's a good thing to kind of practice on something like this before you take your really nice guitar and try to do something with. And I do think that all players, regardless of skill level, should know a few basic maintenance techniques: string changes, how to adjust the action, how to set the intonation. Those are all very basic and don't require any tools hitting your guitar. Things like working with the frets, fret crowns, fret leveling. Anytime that you're breaking out a hand tool or a sand, you know, some kind of sanding device or anything like that, you want to use something like this. Okay, and the fifth reason actually kind of ties a little bit into the fourth reason. But the fifth reason you may want to have a dirt cheap guitar is if you want to do something kind of off the wall. Like maybe you decided you wanted to pick up, you know, something like this just because it looks different. This is actually a first act guitar. These things were cheap when they were new. My wife actually found this for $20 at a thrift store. And I'm basically going to see what can be done with this. Again, this would be a good example of something you might get to kind of practice on. But, you know, if you're going to try for some showmanship on stage and do things like, you know, play the guitar behind your back or do something that might result in damage to your instrument on stage, it's always better to use something like this. Yes, when Jimi Hendrix did Monterey Pop and set his guitar on fire, you know, I don't know that I would do that to my nice American-made Strats. But again, it's all part of the show, and these guitars are kind of good for that. I'm going to be doing a few videos on this particular guitar once I have time to kind of dig into it and show what's possible with some of these dirt cheap guitars. I might go in and replace some pots or something and just show what's possible with something like this. And again, it does look a little bit different. So if you wanted to kind of set yourself apart, how well it plays, I really couldn't tell you. I haven't even put new strings or anything on it yet. I haven't had a chance to kind of mess with it. But obviously this one is, you know, in pretty rough condition. I'm probably going to be doing quite a bit to kind of get this up and running. And then, you know, you may decide you want to paint it different colors or stain it down. Again, it works to have a cheap guitar for that. Or if you're going to be doing acrobatics on stage and slinging a guitar around like Steve Vai, I'd rather break something like this than, you know, break one of my nice guitars. Okay, so that was the top 5 reasons why you might want to get a dirt cheap guitar. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like it, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell icon. It really does help me out with growing my channel. Again, I'll be doing other videos about doing some of this maintenance stuff in the future and showing some things that you can do with dirt cheap guitars. Be looking for new reviews that are going to be coming up on different pieces of equipment that I have. I'll be branching out away from just guitars. I've got a dirt cheap bass video that's going to be coming up and other things like that. And so until next time, remember, keep practicing.